I've been waiting for this one. Turn it up!
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine.
Listen up, you animals, I know what you want. You want the 80s? Well, you're gonna have it. Because, let's be fair, lads, you don't think Back to the Future and think the 50s, do you? You think of Michael J. Fox in the 80s, you think of the crazy future one and then the weird cowboy one that nobody really seems to like. Well, what if we go back to the 80s instead of the 50s?
We have to go back!
Bear with me, we're gonna get there. Just like how the It remake brought the whole plot forward by 30 years, so we start in the present day and go back to the 80s as opposed to in the original novel, where in the book we started in the 80s and went back to the 50s. And don't get me wrong, there's loads of films out there that go back to the thing but then like kind of save it to the end. Episode 9 with the Death Star, Dr. Sleep with the Overlook, even Endgame with the original Avengers. They hook you in with it in the trailers but then they don't actually deliver on it until a bit later on. You know, a lot of these films you do your original plot for the first hour and then you give us the thing. But you can't do that with Back to the Future because we go back in time in the first 20 minutes. Let me picture this. If we did a remake that began in the 80s, went back to the 50s, all the trailers and that are going to be about non-stop 80s, 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 but we're only going to be there for the beginning and the end. The majority of it's going to be in the 50s, and that ain't going to get bums on seats, is it? And yeah, sure, you could ring out the 80s stuff with those two bookends and still use it in the marketing, but the 50s are only getting further and further away, and so the longer you wait, the less nostalgia you're going to be able to mine out of the people that grew up in the 80s. You're going to blow your marketing budget on Huey Lewis and the News and New Coke just to plonk us in Disneyland for 90 minutes. It ain't gonna fly. No, we're clever than that on the Joe West YouTube channel.
Yeah!
We're going back to the 80s. So, casting, we need young blood for the franchise. I don't know what that is. We need young blood for the franchise. Martinez McFly is going to be played by Zendaya. And Doc Brown is the one and only Robert Downey Jr. We're drawing on established dynamics here from other franchises. They're focus grouped, they work well together, and I know there's edits out there of the Tom Holland as Michael J. Fox, but look, while we've got the chance, why don't we get some ladies up in here? Because squeaky clean, little Victor Dickensian orphan Tom Holland, he's just gonna bloody love it, mate. He's not gonna question anything, but all sassy Zendaya, she's gonna be calling out the Cosby Show and Trump and everything, you know what I mean? It's gonna be, she's our way in, and we should definitely keep true to the original and have their parents play both the modern day versions and the teenage versions, using old makeup and what have you. Or don't, I mean, I'm not your mother, I'm not one of these CGI snobs, am I right? And we'll establish the meme. Yeah, her family sucks and she's a massive loser. She's the star of her own story, but in reality she hangs out with this old guy at the edge of town. It's a little odd. People question why she hangs out with him, rides a skateboard and plays this weird experimental music for Battle of the Bands. She's bloody obsessed with the 80s, mate. Can't get enough of them. And because this is a reboot of the franchise, we're gonna pepper in the original cast for some cameos, spread them thin like butter. Look, we're not getting Crispin Glover back, we all know that. But you've got your Tom Wilson, Lisa Thompson, they can all have parts. Look, J.K. Simmons for Strickland, that's all I'm saying. So, I've addressed all your concerns about the original. So, you know, the opening 20 minutes or so are going to play out normally as is. Marty and her boyfriend are going to sit in front of the clock tower. Lady's going to shake the thing out of the donation jar, not the other thing.
Yeah!
So a lot of these changes are really going to kick in when we hit the Twin Pines experiment scene. As we're starting in modern day, Doc Brown is a modern scientist, and RDJ's performance will be kooky and offbeat, but he's still going to be cool. You know, it's Sherlock Holmes meets Iron Man. The DeLorean will look largely how you remember it, with some modern tweaks here and there. And, you know, Marty's going to ask, well, how come you didn't go for a Tesla or something modern? But Doc Brown explains he's keeping a low profile, so he bought this old car on the cheap. We run the scene pretty much word for word. Now Doc Brown's greatest scientific achievement happened on November 15th, 1985, the day he invented time travel. Marty asks, how did that come about? He rattles off some spiel about, oh, I hit my head and all this, don't even worry about it. But, you know, he's kind of hinting that maybe that isn't the complete truth. Obviously, my god, it's not terrorists that take him out. Can you imagine in this day and age? It's rival scientists. This will be a brand new plot for the remake. The idea is that modern Doc Brown has worked his whole career to showcase this invention at the science fair, but of course, it's RDJ. He's rustled some feathers in the process, right? You know, he's cheeky. So a group of rival scientists catch wind of his invention, and they rock up, and although he tries to smooth talk him, they vaporize him. Come on, you monsters, want to shoot down RDJ, they're gonna vaporize him. You know, it's like fun, it's like Star Trek. Marty jumps into the DeLorean, there's some jokes about her not knowing how to drive an old car, and then boom, she shoots off into the past. So in the 80s, Marty goes into town, and that's how money's shot. Cha-ching, cha-ching, we got power of love, disco gear, crazy hair, it's like Stranger Things on crack, right? In the original, the past looked clean and bright, whereas the present looked dirty, but here the past looks like colourful and bright. And we'll have your notes to Michael Jackson and Trump and all the works. Marty goes to the bar, grabs a Coke and meets her dad, and also Biff, of course. She chases in, gets hit by Lorraine's dad, and wakes up in her bed, and now I've got this fun spin on the twist. Lorraine likes girls now?
Yeah.
Marty goes to Doc's house, and instead of knocking on just after he's bumped his head, she sees it happen. He said he didn't bump his head on the toilet seat, I told you he was fibbing. He is busting out to some classic 80s pop. He's got the spandex, the work. RDJ is killing it. It's Marty who knocks on the window, makes this noise, causes him to trip. Whoa, 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 you know, he's tripping all over the place. He bangs his head, and then boom, we see the cogs and the gears whirring in this like computer generated sequence. A real Doctor Who intro time vortex inside his head. Look, that's my addition to the plot. That's not wholly necessary to the remake, but I just think it'd be quite cool if we play with paradoxes early on and having the Marty, in a sense, cause Doc to invent time travel. Marty goes inside to help, she does the line and realises that she's the reason he invented time travel. Heavy. Again, seen as is, they realise that Marty has changed history and won't exist until she puts it back right. And instead of a Polaroid picture, she's got a picture on her phone, and that actually starts changing and fading. You know, we're modernising it, kids, we're modernising it. Now when she's picking up George, he feels awkward because instead of this, you know, this guy bromance, it's like this girl talking to him, trying to get him to talk to other girls. He likes his Star Wars, his Doctor Who, his 80s nerd stuff, and she'll fry his brain by plugging the earphones into some Billie Eilish. And instead of being like, I'm Darth Vader, she'll be like, I'm Kylo Ren. And George will say, well, who's that? And she'll say, well, I'm Darth Vader's grandson. And he'll go, Darth Vader doesn't have a grandson. And she'll say, silence, I carry the hate and vengeance of the First Order. And he'll say, don't you mean the Empire? Or we could do like a Thanos Marvel joke, don't even worry about it. But, you know, George is convinced, and they do this fun, this great 80s dance scene to get his confidence up. Meanwhile, Doc sees young versions of the scientists that kill him in the future, eventually, and he wants to show him his designs right now, but Marty has to convince him not to and keep him away from them. She can't tell him why yet, but she's just like, look, you don't want anything to do with those guys, trust me. Look, the skateboard scene, I don't know, because this Doc Brown is quite cheeky, he could jerry-rig her skateboard up to having like rocket boosters on it or something and then take her off, and that way that'd be quite fun. So the Enchantment Under the Sea dance rolls around, and Marty and Lorraine go, but it ain't right. Again, this could all run as is. George knocks out Biff, Marty gets to play the show, but now it's some modern stuff that like everyone enjoys. At the clock tower, the experiment is set. Marty tries to give Doc the letter explaining what's going to happen in the future. He rips it up, she hops into the DeLorean, lightning strikes, and boom, sends her back to the future. Now in the present day, Doc is wearing a bulletproof vest, and Marty's parents are successful. And then we're going to carry on the present day plot a little bit. We're going to see the science fair that Doc was going to unveil the invention at. You know, and here Doc will show his experiment to the world, and of course everyone's amazed by it. The chairman of the science convention, played by Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox, give him the award. They pass the medal, they pass the torch. Do you get where I'm going with it? And then Doc gets back up on stage and proudly announces he's actually going to send himself forward in time as a demonstration. He's going to go forward to the year 2035. He has some clear space, he hops in the DeLorean, gets it up to 88 miles an hour, and boom, he goes. Just like in the original, but now he's got an audience. Marty and that guy go home to take it all in, but Doc appears again, saying it's the kids, come on, we're gonna go back to the future, and then boom, straight into the sequel. So from here, we can see a really cool 2035 in the sequel, but Doc will emphasize heavily that this is just one of many futures that will change, which should calm the trolls who'll dominate the marketing with, well, this is gonna look embarrassing in 30 years. And the joke will be that the future will be obsessed with the 90s, the 30-year cycle and all that. Lots of it will be very clean and white and eco-friendly, kind of like the original. We're going to go really abstract with this, so it clearly won't represent the actual future, so we're just having fun with it. You know, the trolls will be trolls, right? When they get back to the present, we'll do some fun political stuff with Biff's place, and we'll get a double bonus because then the sequel will get to retread the 80s as well from the background of the original. Hey, you get two 80s films for the price of one, how's about that? And as we brought everything forward, in the third film, let's go back to 1925. Because cowboys are fun, but even Westworld couldn't hang on to them for longer than a series. The Prohibition era gives us the chance for Marty to start a civil rights movement, get the pair involved in moonshine running, and all sorts of crazy mischief. Long discussions about the ethics of time travel, Doc falls in love, and this is my big change for the third film. So in the original, the third act, it just drags, man. Just Doc gets drunk and Marty shooting and shouting at Mad Dog Tannen and the different coloured smoke lights. But let's do it all that, but change two key parts. Tannen chases them on the train, and during the struggle, they accidentally overpower the locomotive. They give the DeLorean too many gigawatts and send it hurtling down the time stream. They'll be chased by Mad Dog Tannen during all of this, so it's basically Back to the Future the ride, with this mad mob boss chasing them through the time stream. And they're gonna hop between all the different time zones of Hill Valley, including seeing the original, digitally de-aged Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox on their adventure. They'll go forward in time, back to the Stone Age, and Tannen will get eaten by a dinosaur. It's all fun and games, but Doc explains that they're damaging the fabric of space-time and the universe is unraveling around them. This leads to an epic climax with Doc dangling on the edge of the wormhole, telling Marty to let go. It's the only way. He tells Marty to take Clara with her. Marty's hanging on to the DeLorean. This is his only way back home. She doesn't really want to let go, so Clara dives ahead and pushes Doc into the stream, freeing Marty. They both fall into oblivion together, and Marty gets home safely. So, Marty back in the present, boom, DeLorean hit by a train. Marty collects her boy and wonders if it's all over. But then, Doc Brown appears on the train with Clara and the kids and explains that the wormhole dropped him right back in 1925. It closed where it opened. Marty thinks it's impossible, but Doc admits he had help, and he winks at another version of himself who climbs into a phone booth and disappears. It's just a funny little gag. Doc does the famous line, but before he leaves, he says, "By the way, I thought you could do with an upgrade." And when they fly away, they leave a second, brand new DeLorean in their wake. But this one is a proper Tesla situation. It's a modern car. Marty whacks on her sunglasses, and Back in Time plays us out. There you go, kids. We fixed Back to the Future. Now all we have to do is wait for Robert Zemeckis to drop dead and release the rights. Am I right?